It is a good morning indeed on this 22nd day of July 2025. My name is Simba Elijah Charles King again. This is Look Up TV, but most certainly you are just in time for the morning drift. We have a lot of conversations that we're going to look at this morning, just exactly how the country is shaping up politically. We've seen a lot happen over the weekend, all the way up to where we are today. We're putting that into proper perspective and also telling you exactly what is happening in other spheres of the economy as well. We'll be briefing you as we go by the day. Just before then, I introduce the panel that is going to take us through this morning to sort of put a proper perspective into some of the issues that we have to talk about today. Let's then take a quick look at our dailies this morning, and I'm going to start with the Daily Nation on that matter. It's a similar headline from what we had yesterday. They're talking about how the eyes are on judiciary as state turns up the heat on critics. If I can just take a look at what that headline is talking about. They're talking about how the judicial independence in the country is facing a litmus test following calls by the executive to met out harsh penalties on opposition politicians, anti-government protests, and civil society activists. Some who are facing terrorism charges and have been slapped with a hefty bail and bond terms over their alleged involvement in a recent youth-led protests. Will the judiciary succumb to this push or abide by the law and constitution? That story, you're going to read it on page 4 and 5 this morning. A picture right there of one Boniface Mwangi, who was held at the Kahawa Law Court yesterday, where he was charged with the unlawful possession of ammunition. He was granted a 1 million shillings bond. Now the matter will be mentioned on August 19th for directions. Remember, he was charged on terrorism charges. We'll be looking into that briefly with our panelist that is joining us this morning. Also, other headlines that you're going to wake up this morning. There's a story on page 7 on how political seats become a family affair of leaders perpetuating politics of inheritance. Page 7 is coming on the back heels of Mwangaza acquiring a political party, and the top post of that political party have essentially just been taken over by the family. You can read that story on page 7. There's also a story here on why you must prove your contribution to claim matrimonial assets now. Judge tells spouses. That story, you're going to read it on page 3. There's also a story here on Shakahola Part 2, where the cult horror has resurfaced in a Kilifi. That story is on page 2. And remember, 400 are the people that are feared dead in the Shakahola tragedy, in which cult followers were encouraged to starve themselves to death to get to heaven. That story again has been covered on page 2. There's a story here on page 8 on how the ministry is now raising concerns as working class mothers are avoiding breastfeeding their children. That story has been covered on page 8 as well. We're going to get perspective on some of these major headlines here with our guests who are in the studio this morning. I'll be introducing them. Just before then I get to introduce them, let's also look at what the Standard is talking about this morning. It's quite a very bold headline from them. They're talking about how cornered by the public. The picture right there of the top investigative agencies in the country. We have also in between that headline, they also have in headlines of Ruto's terror trap and the DCI gone rogue. That's exactly what they're talking about here. And if you look at exactly what they're saying, they're talking about how a flood of disapproval from an increasingly frustrated citizenry yesterday pushed the struggling director of public prosecutions to drop the far-fetched terrorism charge against right activist Boniface Mwangi. The DPP later issued a press statement defending the decision to level such bizarre charges against the activists, critics of the Ruto administration and protesters. we're just going to leave it there, because indeed that's exactly what we're going to talk about this morning. Just briefly before we jump into our main conversation this morning, let me then go right ahead and introduce the guests who are joining us this morning on our conversation. Yes, as they say, ladies first. I'll start with one Ruth Bolo. How are you doing? It's been a minute.
It has, but I'm glad to be here. I am.
All right. Also joining us this morning, we do have Mr. Shiyuka Douglas, who is the National Chairman, UDA Lobby Groups. How are you doing, Shiyuka?
I'm fine, thank you for having me.
Happy to see you.
I'm happy too.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Now, I just want us to briefly then jump into what the headlines are talking about this morning, the dailies, before we jump into our big conversation. I will start with you, Ruth. I mean, if you look at what both of them are talking about, they're talking about how all the eyes are now on the judiciary. There was a spectacle yesterday again, which was also covered by the Standard, where the DCI was forced to hold a press conference to sort of justify why they were holding one Boniface Mwangi on charges of terrorism. I mean, we've never seen it happen in this country. I mean, when you're taken to court by the DCI, they've already done and dusted with their investigations. The only thing that is going to be thrown to you is charges. But the DCI yesterday was forced to come out and do a presser telling us why he's been held on those charges. Let's begin with it. Eyes on the judiciary and also cornered by the public. Headlines that are all talking about what is going on at the DCI office. Can we make sense of it? Well,
it's interesting because before Boniface Mwangi was actually arrested, because that is what has brought this whole thing to the limelight, we had 37 young people that had been arrested on the same charges.
yes.
Not famous, just young people who either participated in the protests physically or online.
Yes.
They were all charged on terrorism charges. Before that, two of them, and I know this particularly because I was going to support the young ladies who were arrested. One of them had been arrested and they put some crazy 21 charges, that being Sarah Wanjiku Thiga. She was arrested alongside Peter Kawanjiro.
Yes.
And the manner, first of all, in which were arrested, you would ask yourself, are these really citizens of Kenya? Because even if you're coming to arrest me, there is a procedure to it. Now, they went to court. First of all, they were arraigned at Ruto law courts. The judge threw out the case because they had no evidence. I was in court when the prosecution was being asked, did you catch any of them on camera? No. Are there any witnesses? No. Have you received any CCTV camera or anything to show that they are the ones who participated in vandalizing property, in burning, was it Kikuyu police station? Do you have any evidence at all? No, we are still investigating. So what then leads you to arrest someone when you're still investigating,
yes.
when you don't have your facts right? What saddens me is immediately the judge threw out that case while their bail was being processed. ATPU comes and rearrests them. We were in court when we had screams from Wanjiku Thiga. That was then followed by another 36 young people who were arrested, one of who was a chef at one of our very prominent hotels here in Nairobi, and her only fault was being around the scene when the police were coming to pick people. She had left her house to go and pick food. You know how you leave your house, you don't even lock it because you know you're just going around the corner. Yes. She had gone to buy food, and because the police station had just been burnt, they carried her. Any person who looked like they were a youth was bundled inside. And that's how she found herself under terrorism charges. So my question is, the state might be thinking that they are taming the horns of those who are critiquing government. But what they're doing is radicalizing young people more. I know of so many other people who are saying, if it were me who was arrested, I would come out there very radical. Yes. I would come out there not caring, because what more can you do other than arraigning me in court as a terrorist? Because you have already branded them terrorists. What is stopping them from going ahead to be terrorists? They can no longer travel right now. Finding a job is going to be difficult for them right now. So are you really helping, or are you really radicalizing? And just to caution government. I don't know who is giving them this advice of misusing the Prevention of Terrorism Act, but just to caution them that the very same acts you are sharpening and allowing to go rogue is the very same one that will turn on you and cut you very deeply.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you on that because I'll be reading some excerpts of that presser the DCI boss held yesterday. But Shuka, I'm going to define, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, even without looking at what the Kenyan law really states, because majority of those definitions that the DCI was making yesterday were also, I would say, inferred meanings. Here it is. Terrorism is the calculated use of violence or threat of violence to instill fear and coerce governments or societies, often for political, religious, or ideological goals. It's a tactic that relies on generating widespread fear to achieve objectives beyond immediate victims of the violence. If you look at those headlines of the Daily Nation and the Standard this morning, Standard is essentially just saying how the DCI was cornered to drop charges of terrorism against some of the victims of the mass protests in this country, Boniface Mwangi also included. If you look at where Ms. Bolo is coming from this morning, she's saying, well, I mean, that charge, it looks as if it was a charge that was thrown to them to instill fear. And that's what the Daily Nation is saying, that they sort of feel like the DCI now is getting used to be a tool to spread fear in the country. Shuka, do you agree that indeed the likes of Boniface Mwangi would attract a charge of terrorism?
Mr. Simba, first of all, I'll say that Kenya is our country and we have a responsibility as patriotic citizens to take care of it. We live in a country that is guided by the law and the constitution. And every Kenyan has the freedom to picket and do whatever he wants to do, so long as he does that within the law and the constitution.
Yes.
The government, or let's say the DCI, I don't want to hold brief for anybody, but I just want to say that what we do, we must be very careful.
Yes.
That we should not plunge this country into turmoil.
Yes.
If the DCI had facts against Boniface Mwangi and the rest, that the judges they're facing meet the threshold of terrorism, then I think they have to prove that in a court of law. Mwangi, Boniface Mwangi and the rest, I think they have a right to picket and demonstrate because that is enshrined in the constitution.
Yes.
But they should also know that other Kenyans also they have got their rights. In going on and exercising their rights, they should not go beyond and infringe on the rights of other people. Because this is our country, and we have to know the limits.
Yes.
And the boundaries.
Yes.
So, me, I'm saying that Boniface Mwangi and the rest, they have got a right under the Constitution to picket and demonstrate. But there is a limit to what you can do. You have to be very careful that whatever you do should not infringe on the right of other citizens.
Yes.
And the DCI,
yes,
before they arrest somebody, they should gauge and know that these judges meet the threshold of the judges who are to arrest.
That's it. If you look at the turnaround, well, I'm going to come to you. If you look at the turnaround yesterday, I mean, the case developed because it went in on the back of terrorism charges. That later on, after that presser, it was realized that the only thing they were charging him now is possession of firearm, ammunition. They're saying that he was in possession of a gun. I don't want to read it on air. That is exactly now what the charge later dropped down to. That turnaround for a case that is in court, Chiyuka, from the DCI, doesn't that poke holes into the investigative agencies and sort of like what their end goal is when they're pushing charges against the protesters in this country, the likes of Boniface Mwangi, I would say.
I think Simba,
Chiyuka, speak to it.
Yes, I think I will not condemn the DCI as wholesomely, But I think I'll put the responsibility on the specific officers who did the execution. They should be answerable to the public. Why did they arrest Boniface Mwangi without having measured the charges that they meet the threshold of terrorism?
Yes.
So I think this one, those officers who are particularly involved in arresting Mwangi and taking him to court are responsible for that.
But now, before we move away from this and talk about the bigger issue that we're supposed to talk about this morning, these cases of terror, when we're saying that we're going to court, we've arrested somebody in this country on the background of terrorism charges, should the DCI get involved when we have such a big charge that is being pushed, not to one individual, to a couple of individuals in this country on the back of protests that have happened in the country? Does it take to the DCI to say, well, let's see what charge every other person arrested on the back of demonstrations in this country is going to carry once they go to court? Because that turnaround again, it sort of confirmed to a larger degree the fears the majority of Kenyans have been having towards that office, that it's being used by the state to spread fear, to spread panic against the critics and demonstrators that are in this country. Does it to a larger degree say, well, yes, we're being used, that's why we're making a turnaround upon public pressure? That was a case in court. I mean, let's see where the case was. It was not somebody getting arrested at the protests. They processed it. They were convinced that this is somebody who's pushing terrorism in the country. To what level should have the DCI intervene before we go to court?
If you look at the proceedings, and allow me to start from the late Albert Ojwang's death, may his soul rest in peace. If you look at the responses that DCI has been giving, the language they are using, you begin to tell yourself, truly, there is what Christians would call confusion in the enemy's camp. Because they say they're giving contradictory statements. They are charging people without evidence and without facts. They are rushing to give, press statements. Gone were the days where you would hear someone has been arrested by the DCI and this person has done something serious. Now, if someone tells you Ruth has been arrested by DCI, the first question you will ask is, amekosea nani? Because DCI is no longer the office that we respect and fear. You would hear DCI Wako area, you just get shivers, because then they have done the investigation, they have the evidence. In fact, if they charge you, you would not even look for an expensive lawyer because what they are charging you for is almost true. Yes. But right now, and like I said, I have been in court in the past cases of young people who have been arrested because of terrorism charges, just for the mere fact that they either said something online or participated in the protests or posted a photo just showing that they were in the protest. And if you hear the representatives of DCI in court, the court was ever full of laughter. Because they would be asked, so you have said this person was mobilizing people and you are sure this person is mobilizing and paying people. Do you have a witness to that effect? No. Do you have, so right now, and they would be asked, so right now what you are saying is just an assumption. Yes. You cannot tell me that a trained and experienced DCI officer is in court saying they are charging someone or they arrested someone based on an assumption. So I think for me, it looks like a confirmation, and it's about time that they need to have an internal discussion just to relook at themselves and ask themselves, really, is this the direction we want to go as a country? Because if DCI begins that way, ATPU is already going wrong, because ATPU is now the one being used. The army will also go rogue. Then what happens? What kind of a country really will we be having? What happens if the military wakes up and says, we are not happy with the way the government is using the other police states to rule this country? Then what happens? Who will be answerable? And Douglas said something about the protesters being careful when they are protesting. And I'd like to give him a challenge. You know, I'll go soft on Douglas because I know it's very difficult to defend government right now. But if you look at the deaths, the prominent deaths that have happened to those aligned in government or those who are prominent, and I'll use the example of the late Ongondorere, may his soul rest in peace. How long did it take them to tell us investigations have reached a particular stage? In fact, every news bulletin, we were being updated. There was always a press statement telling us, or a press conference that was telling us, we have arraigned this number of people. We have been able to obtain CCTV cameras in this roundabout and here and here. We have been able to get phone records. It took less than a month. But now we are unable to actually use the same resources to find out who exactly is mobilizing for the goons that are vandalizing property. Because I have participated in the protest, and I will tell you, the organic protest, you will not see anyone stealing. In fact, if you steal, it is the protesters that will come and deal with you, because we are marching on for a particular cause. But if you look at some of the recent protests, it is goons of one side versus goons of another side. If you look at some of the areas, it is clear that when the protests begin, the goons are then sent in. And so when one faction sends the goons to deal with the protesters, the other faction sends the goons to deal with the other goons. Yes. And so the government needs to just come out clear and say, we do not have a problem with the protesters. We are not, because what is happening right now is our civic space is shrinking. The democratic space in Kenya is shrinking, and that is very concerning. And so the government just needs to come out clear and say, our issue is the goons, because those goons that are being reintroduced into the country are the ones who are now, going back to the estates. Right now, cases of insecurity are high in the estates. And so I think when we start saying that protesters have a right to protest, but the minute you put the article but, there is already a problem. They actually need to sit down and say, we've seen these people have been activists for a very long time. We saw mothers who did a press conference at the Kenya Human Rights Commission. What happens? Goons were sent. Are we then going to say those women are the ones who attacked themselves? Are we then going to say those protesters are the ones who vandalized that property? I mean, we need to have a very honest conversation.
Pretty much. As you touch that.
Let me just put a rejoinder here. Yes. Madam is saying that we just let people protest. I agree. But when the protests lead to destruction of property, lead to death of people, are you going to tell me that the government should just sit pretty and say we are giving the protesters the freedom to exercise when people's property is being destroyed, when people are being killed? Are we going to tell me that the government has the responsibility to give them the freedom and also to protect the property and the lives of the people?
When you talk about death, it is the police that are killing them.
Now, again, also, with Boniface Mwangi, I don't think the government was involved, because the DCI arrested Boniface Mwangi and with the charges of terrorism. But when he was taken to court, the court found that the charges don't meet the threshold of terrorism charges. Then they were dropped. If it was the government's script to arrest Mwangi, Boniface Mwangi, on terrorism charges, it could have gone through. It could have gone through from the DCI to the courts. But here,
the courts can be manipulated.
What I'm saying, what I'm going to say, because you say it's the government, and I'm saying it was not the government. Because if the government can manipulate the DCI, it can also manipulate the courts. So what I'm saying is, it is the threshold. If the DCI says that you are a thief, they take you to court to prove that you are a thief. But when they're taken to the court, and the court, after weighing the thresholds, it says no, the terrorism charges, this is not the threshold. So I think we should not put the government in the dock. Let Boniface Mwangi and other protesters have respect also to the country, and they know that whatever they're doing has got limits.
To clarify,
they don't have absolute freedom to do whatever they want.
Yes.
They are also guided by the law and the constitution. So this they must understand.
Yes.
Allow me to just clarify.
Your freedom should not infringe my rights.
You see, I've made it very clear.
If we can take a minute.
Yes, I've made it very, very clear that we do have protesters. And I am not refusing that property has been vandalized.
Yes.
But what I am saying is it is crystal clear that it is not protesters that are vandalizing property. That is the truth of the matter.
No,
and I am saying this as a person who has participated in the protest. We have
do you
seen...
differentiate? How do you differentiate between a protesters? Because when
that is what, if you listen to me, I have even given an example.
When your rights infringes on my rights,
yes,
then it is a crime.
And that is what, if you listen to me carefully, I have actually said we have protesters, and I will give an example of the June 25th protests that happened recently.
Yes, in 30 seconds.
In those protests, we had the actual protesters begin. There was a meeting. If you listen to me, you will hear what you differentiate.
Okay.
Right? So they have an assembling point. That is number one.
Yes.
And they march on towards towards Parliament, where they're going to put their flowers.
Yes.
Now you have a group that is marching that side to put their the flowers, and then you have a group that is coming in motorbikes and in distributed rungus or whatever they are, sticks, wooden sticks, and it is clear that you can see those are not protesters. And they actually say we are here to remove protesters from here. No protester was holding
how would you say I'm a goon and I'm a protester?
No protester was holding a stick.
What is the threshold? How do you differentiate?
The onus is on the government. I want to take a tiny break. I want to take a tiny break.
Yes. Once we come back, because majority of what we're talking about again is what we've seen happen in some of the campaigns of Rigathi Gachagua, where indeed the government again has been used to go right in and disburse those followers of Rigathi Gachagua, and Rigathi Gachagua has been unrelenting recently, saying that he will do everything possible. He will do everything possible to speak to his community, to make sure that all the interests of his community are taken into account as we make the run into the 2027 election. Again, we're going to talk about that as well, because Rigathi Gachagua has also been saying, well, indeed, what you've been seeing in the country is all orchestrated by the state, including what Mr. Shiuke and Bolo are arguing about this morning on what indeed are goons and legit protesters. Once we come back right here at Look Up TV, keep on talking to us at Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. My name is Elijah Charles Kinage. We come back to tackle the major part of our conversation this morning.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Look Up, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu, kwa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
people are there to belittle you. When people are questioning you,
if you don't move fast, of course, yes, you lose it, but then it's not us to push you.
But you do not know the God who has been molding me. What has he been doing to me?
The deep and mature conversations of empowerment for you with a curious mind and an appetite for oriented conversations.
I concur with what you're saying. You plan your finances, you can easily live without a debt.
An engaging safe space of free expression and truthfulness with an upheld vibrance, motivation and happiness.
So many children who are there, they are not living their dreams.
Join us for deep conversations with Zipporah Gashushe every Saturday from 8 p.m. The Deeper Conversations on Look Up TV.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles King. Again, let's take a look at our big conversation then this morning. Here's the thing, there's a man who's been on an onslaught of the President of the Republic of Kenya, that's Dr. William Ruto. And he's vowed with everything that he's got that is going to make sure that President William Ruto doesn't get to see the second term in office. In fact, one term has been a term that has been completely coined around one former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. So this morning, we're just here to investigate. Is the shift happening as one Rigathi Gachagua is saying? He's been blamed by those in government for being a tribalist. But he's a man who seems to have answers to every question that is thrown in his domain. He's saying Kenya is a country of 47 tribes plus. And there's nothing that's going to stop him from speaking his language. If anybody thinks he's a tribalist by using his local dialect to address his people and get them ready for 2027, he said, well, fetch me and take me to court. So that's where we are this morning. And let me take you back to the day before yesterday, where his troops were attacked in Nakuru by what is alleged, again by one Rigathi Gachagua, were the security detail of one Governor Susan Kihika. In fact, Rigathi Gachagua comes out and says, I am going to talk to my people in Nakuru, and all of them are going to make Susan Kihika a one-term governor, according to him. So let's talk about that this morning then. I'm going to start with you, Bolo. His move is that I do not want to see President William Ruto get that seat in 2027. And Rigathi Gachagua is moving as a man who tends to think that if he convinces his people, who form the biggest voting bloc in this country, not to vote for one William Ruto, then he shall have achieved his main objective, not to see William Ruto get back to office. Is that enough?
Allow me to start by making it very clear that in as much as William Samoei Ruto is not the man that should go back into office, Rigathi Gachagua is not an option as well. It's just important that I put that out there.
Is it also important to say that he's not declared that he's going back to office? Like his main aim is to make sure that one President, William Ruto, doesn't go back to office?
He has not declared using his words, but he is insinuating it. He is doing every other thing to show that he is. And I mean, if you look at the court ruling right now, and if you listen to his people, they keep on telling you, I mean, the court said what happened was unconstitutional. The court threw out that decision. The court, you know. So I mean, if you listen to the language of his people, they're actually telling us, watch out for this man, he might come. But I'm making it very clear that Rigathi Gachagua is also not an option. That being said, somehow in this country, the minute you arrest someone, the minute you frustrate them, you grow them even more politically. I am yet to understand how that math works. I am yet to understand that. But I don't think anybody needs convincing not to vote for William Samoei Ruto. The convincing you need is every June when we are discussing the finance bill. I mean, this time round, Honorable Mbadi had quite a lot with the public participation meetings. Go to your supermarket, you will get that reminder. Go to your local hospital, public hospital, you will get that reminder. Talk to teachers, you will get that reminder. Listen to UDA members of parliament in the National Assembly speaking, you will get that reminder. So nobody needs to be convinced by Rigathi Gachagua. However, it's not enough for him to just convince a particular tribal bloc. Yes, there have been conversations, and I know COG Africa put out some statistics where they said, we have always said that this particular tribe, which is the biggest voting bloc, has always come out in numbers to vote. But the one time that they actually came out in numbers to vote was 2013. Yes. They have not come out in numbers in that manner again. And if you look at the percentages of the numbers, you'd find that in some counties, their numbers are 65%, while numbers of another tribe are 80% in terms of, not looking at the numbers, but the percentage of people who are coming out to vote. Yes. So I don't think it is enough, but I also think that this idea of going to attack him and making it very difficult for him is something that they should do away with, because it's growing him politically. But again, this is politics. How sure are we that it is actually Governor He has people that are attacking him. It could be him who is sending people to attack his troops and saying, hey, these guys are attacking me, just to seek sympathy, because we've seen that sympathy actually works in this country. So I think that is something that I would be very careful to speak on, because again, this is a politician who is speaking, so we don't know if it is true. Yeah. Whereas, yes, I have seen a lot of his troops arrested, unfortunately, and frustrated by the government. It's a bit difficult to know whether it is him or the actual government that has sent people to disrupt his rallies.
Yes. Yeah. I'll be coming to you on what the impact of his community would really have to President Dr. William Ruto's second term in office. Shuka, same question to you. Is it enough? Rigathi Gachagua was focused on his community, and we do know that indeed, when you look at the voting statistics in this country, the biggest voting bloc essentially comes from his community. He's convinced that if he manages to take his community away from one president, William Ruto, then he's never going to see the second term in office. Is that enough?
Mr. Simba, thank you so much. That is not enough, and it can never be enough. Rigathi Gachagua is a man who is in a hurry to grab power by all means necessary. And let me tell you, I talk for as an insider. Rigathi Gachagua was planning for a coup in the party when he was the deputy president, together with his assistant. In the party. So I would advise Rigathi Gachagua that the formula he's using to come and be the president of the Republic of Kenya is wrong. Because every Kenyan, whether from the largest community or from the smallest community, if he or she qualifies, and he has the manifesto that can be embraced by all the people, should be the president. But the formula Rigathi Gachagua is using, that I go back to my tribe, and I send Matiang'i to the Kisses, and he sent the Kalonzo to the campus, they will come and sit on the table. And he'll tell them, I have the majority on this table. What do you have? Matiang'i, you have 1 million. Kalonzo, you have 1.5. Me, I have 8 million. I am supposed to be the president. He will micromanage them. He will bully them. That's not the president we want to be to lead this country. The next election, 2027, will not be decided by the people who will go back to their tribes. It will be decided by people who have got the best manifesto, and for the Kenya Kwanza government, it will be decided by the scorecard. The manifesto they brought to the Kenyans. Yes. Have they delivered the health care insurance, the affordable housing, the infrastructural development, yes, the cohesion You get me?
Yes.
And the inclusivity. That's what is going to define who is going to be the president 2027.
Yes.
What Gachagua is doing, and I will give him a free advice, he needs to go slow. He needs to go slow. Let him come up with a manifesto. What he can offer Kenyans that the president and the Kenya Kwanza government cannot offer.
Yes.
Let them differ on the manifestos, but not a matter of one term. Himself, he was a one-term member of parliament. He did not manage to finish one term as a deputy president. That is in the history. Huh? His deputy party leader, Malala, he didn't manage even to be even a half term or governor in Kakamega. He failed. He failed. So he was a senator, one-term senator. So this is a one-term member of parliament and one-term senator, saying that they have something to offer the Kenyans, and they're not telling Kenyans what they want to offer. They're just saying one term. Can they come and tell Kenyans what they want to offer in terms of manifesto? We want this country to be cohesive. We want inclusivity. We don't want people to come on the table and say, go back where you were born, and then come and sit on the table.
Yes.
Let them come with a manifesto that is challenging the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza. Kenyans should listen to them. But when they want to say that one term, I think they are getting crazy with this thing one term. That will not make Kenyans to follow them. Let them come with concrete manifesto and they present them to Kenyans. We shall listen to them. But this one term and taking people back to the ABCD, it will not take Kenya to the promised land.
Should we be coming back with just statistics that Rigathi Gachagua is now using to say, well, he's pretty much convinced that is the front runner in the 2027 election. In fact, you sort of mentioned a bit of that. I'll be coming back to you on that. But look, here's what he said, that I am a front runner and I think I have the best chance to be president. If we downplay it, I mean, I already know what your standpoint is on that particular one. You're saying he's not best placed to be in that position. But going by what we know historically this country has been when it comes to presidential candidates, is that we have side A or B. When you look at side B, don't you think then that indeed if that side joins forces and decides that the person that we're fronting as president is going to be Rigathi Gachagua, then indeed for the very first time, Ruto faces proper opposition in the run-in?
You know, as Douglas was speaking, I actually thought to myself, when you asked the question, maybe we should have asked you, are you asking about this formula from a moral perspective or a political perspective? Because morally, it is actually wrong for him to go back to his tribal cocoon. Because we are unfortunately in a country where when you are on a medical table, when your life is in danger, you don't look around to see the doctors who are treating me, what tribe are they?
Yes.
You don't.
Yes.
When you have gone to the shop, you don't ask yourself, uyo mama mboga ni wa kabila gani? When you have a puncture on the road, you don't say ule mtu wa pikipiki ama mechanic kama mtu wa taxi mwenye ninaita anisaidie ni wa kabila gani? But when our politicians are on the defense or on the offense, then they remind us about our it is only at that point that we have to say this is our son. It is only at that time that we think about it. So morally, what he's doing is wrong. But politically, some may argue that Gachagua is a genius.
Yes.
Because the truth of the matter is that politics in this tribe, in this country, is local.
This is one side.
And
two, I'm sorry to
tribe.
interrupt you on that moral base of it. And he was speaking on the 20th of July. That's what he said. I've got no apologies for speaking Kikuyu. I'm neither a white man nor Chinese. I'm a proud Kikuyu. I will not use a colonial language when addressing my own people. If that makes me a tribalist, so bear it.
What we are telling him, I think Rigathi is getting it wrong, because what we are telling the former deputy president is that, are you only campaigning to your people? Yes, he may argue that when, you know, there's a way that you connect with your people in mother tongue, but what happens to the other Kenyans? Are you saying you don't need the votes from other Kenyans? Are you then saying that you don't need to hear the voice of other Kenyans? Are you then arguing that you don't, whatever message you have that you want to pass across does not need to go to other Kenyans? I think for me, when I hear some of his utterances, I'm very concerned. But this is what we get for looking at the tribal factor when it comes to picking deputy presidents. In 2022...
And I'm sorry again to cut you short there. There was a time when former president, okay, let me just say President Uhuru Kenyatta, went to a local dialect radio station and did an entire interview for more than an hour in local dialect. There was an uproar in the country. Did you also take concern back then when President Uhuru Kenyatta did it, as you were taking concern when one Rigathi Gachagua is now doing it?
I think I have always said this, that we speak, how you speak and what you say depends on where you are. Or rather how you frame that message. Not what you say, but how you frame that message. Now, if I am going to Ramogi station or any other local station, you don't expect me to speak in English, because the listeners of that particular station will be listeners who are speaking that particular dialect, right? But if I am speaking in a national platform, if I have gone to say Nakuru, Nakuru is a cosmopolitan area, I would expect I would expect Uhuru Kenyatta to speak in English. And yes, there is a time that he actually addressed, it was a press conference, and he made some utterances, and we saw people coming out to create an uproar and say, hey, you're supposed to be the president for the whole country, not for a particular area. So again, it depends. If Rigathi Gachagua goes to all this, his local or the Kikuyu stations, and he's speaking in Kikuyu throughout, nobody will pick an issue with it, because those local stations, the majority of their listeners speak and understand that particular language. But if you're coming to Look Up TV, we don't expect you to speak in Kikuyu. If you're going to do a rally in Nairobi, we don't expect you to speak in Kikuyu. If you're going to do a rally in Nakuru, Nakuru is cosmopolitan, we don't expect you to speak in Kikuyu. So again, it depends on where he is speaking. That then dictates it, because it would also be unfair for us to tell him to go to a local station and expect him to speak pure Kiswahili or pure English. In my homestead, for example, in my backyard in Karachuonyo, a lot of people don't understand pure Kiswahili. So if you tell me to go to a local radio station and speak in Kiswahili, I would be lying that my message will pass across. So it depends on where it is. But I wanted to give an example, or rather I wanted to take us back to 2022, when there was this conversation of picking running mates. We had both sides saying the running mate needs to come from Murima. It was not a matter of let's look at the scorecard of the potential candidates. It was not a matter of who is going to be the best in supporting. It was let us rush to get someone from Mulima, one. And two, there was also a factor of money. I mean, it is not a lie, and Douglas, you be, as you said, you are an insider. You will actually accept that one of the things that made Rigathi Gachagua be picked as deputy president is the money factor, the money that he brought on board. So if you made a bad decision when you were picking your deputy president, why does the rest of the country have to suffer for it? That marriage, you should have stuck with it, because the truth of the matter is, Douglas has clearly said that Rigathi Gachagua was planning a coup in the party. So it is simple to assume that that is one of the issues that actually made him, that is one of the things that made him be pushed out as deputy president, and not the fact that he was incompetent. So if your marriage in your bedroom, because UDA was then the bedroom, is not working, you cannot come and make Kenyans suffer for it. And I think that is why, for me, I am happy that Rigathi Gachagua is speaking. I am happy that he is now, because now things are not going well, he is actually coming out to tell Kenyans the ill things that they used to do when they were in government. Yes. He is coming out to actually say, this is what we used to do, this is how we used to do it, these are the wrong things that we used to do, this is how much money we used to siphon. For that reason, I am happy that Rigathi Gachagua is out. But that does not mean that he is the best person to actually come and rule this country, because if he was still in government, he would not be speaking. If he was still in government, he would not be telling us the wrong things that are actually happening. He did not speak until the kitchen became too hot.
On that now, I've got two questions then on what majority of critics of President William Ruto are looking at. There is this conviction that President William Ruto's popularity in the country has dipped greatly, coming from, number one, the way he's handled Rigathi Gachagua, that was the biggest undoing. Number two, the way that he handles majority of protest in the country, Shiuka, that indeed, if there's going to be a shift, is that the people are still supporting President William Ruto is either they know that there's a shift, or indeed they are in denial that that shift is not being felt. Shiyuka, do you feel the shift? And if indeed you don't feel the shift, what makes you say so?
Let me tell you this, Mr. Simba, for asking this question. First, let me make this point that Rigathi Gachagua is not fighting for the people of Mount Kenya. And let me support my sentiment by saying this.
Yes.
That Rigathi Gachagua, if you check the percentage of representation in the current Kenya Kwanza government,
yes,
Mount Kenya leads in the cabinet secretaries. Mount Kenya has the most. He has the deputy president. He has the most number of cabinet secretaries,
yes,
and the principal secretaries. So what else do you think Gachagua is fighting for the people of Mount Kenya to get in the government, and yet the people of Mount Kenya have the majority in this government? When the president, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, has given the people of Mount Kenya, even the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, did not give them. I mean, he did not give them. He has given them the lion's share in this government. So what Rigathi Gachagua is coming with a narrative that I'm going to my people.
Yes.
Can he tell us what he's going to offer to his people that the president has not offered the people of Mount Kenya? Gachagua is fighting for his own personal interest using the people of Mount Kenya.
Yes.
The people of Mount Kenya should support this government because the president and the government has supported them. He has given them the allowance share of representation in the government and even in terms of development. So there is nothing that Gachagua can come and say that he's fighting the government because it has denied the people of Mount Kenya either representation or development project in terms of projects. Number two, nothing has shifted. In fact, we have the power has shifted from the shareholding to inclusivity and cohesion. Because when Gachagua in the government was preaching about shareholding, and this shareholding thing is what is also bringing in the opposition. He's telling people go back to a tribe and then come on the table. There is nobody who will have the same share like Gachagua when they go back to the people and come on the table. He'll tell Matiang'i, I'm supposed to be the president. I have 8 million. Why do you think you should have a president? You should be the president when you have got 1 million on the table. He will bulldoze them. So the government cannot be run by that I'm coming from the highest population or not.
But even Ruto would argue the same. He argued the same. I mean, that's what makes him a party leader. I mean, popularity would make you a party leader, Shiyuka. Because this is what he's saying, and I want to read for you this statement. I'm looking for partners because I'm 100% sure that there's going to be a regime change in Kenya, and we will have a new government. I'm sure Ruto is going home. That is him on the 20th.
Who was saying that?
That is Rigathi Gachagua.
When was that?
20th July 2025. All right? This is what he was saying. So the shit that we're talking about is that, Shuka, there's something that you're closing your eyes to, and that's what Rigathi Gachagua is saying, is that I know where I come from, I've got the biggest voting bloc, and you're actually saying yes.
Yes.
It does have that if indeed he moves the way he's moving and comes with it, then we'll be saying, I've got these numbers as we start. So in the event that indeed Rigathi Gachagua is able to get the partners that he's saying here, and we do know the partners have already fronted themselves for that front-runner position, are you sort of looking back and saying, maybe there is the shift that Rigathi Gachagua is talking about? And the shift is being occasioned by some of these headlines that we've seen here this morning, that the people were disgruntled with the current regime's leadership, the way they're handling their biggest issues in this government. I mean, if you go out, just like Bolo said, the cost of living has skyrocketed. The cost of fuel as we begin today is going back to the historic highs that we saw in the early 2022. period, just as they were coming into government. Remember, we've seen prices go up to 217 shillings for a litre of petrol in this country, that we are closely getting there. That some of the promises that they gave out when they were coming into power, majority of them have been negated. On that basis alone, Shiyuka, that is a threat for potential proper partners by Rigathi Gachagua. Do you feel that indeed you need to look back and say maybe that shift that Rigathi Gachagua is talking about might be real after all?
Let me tell you, my brother, you know, 2027 is an election, is a succession election.
Does it?
So it's attracting a lot of vested interest. And Gachagua has got the democratic right to do whatever he wants to do, but he should not put people in the tribal cocoons and then bring them together for cohesion. For him being a party leader, only being a party leader should make him be a nationalistic figure. Only being a party leader. That only should inform him that I'm a party leader of a political party,
yes,
and I want to be the president of the Republic of Kenya. Not the president of the village of Wamunyoro.
But he's saying that you can't judge him on morality, that me speaking my native language, me talking to my people on that basis alone.
That one, I have got no problem with that.
Will not make you judge him as a national.
I have got no problem with that,
yes,
with him speaking in his mother tongue,
yes,
when he is in Nyeri. But I have a problem with him speaking in mother tongue in a cosmopolitan area as a party leader. In fact, as a party leader of a serious party, he's not supposed to speak in his mother tongue. He can only go and speak in a mother tongue, in a mother tongue, in a radio station or a television that is propagate that language, but not on a national television like this one, where we're speaking English and Swahili. I come here and start speaking Makiluya here.
Yes.
You get me?
Yes.
So that's the difference.
Yes.
But he does not differentiate that difference. He's going, wherever he goes with Kikuyu. You know, Kikuyus are all Kenyans. So he should not use Kikuyus until the other tribes say, now, this guy is too much of a Kikuyu. If he's pushing for the Kikuyu agenda...
Shiyuka, how important is the Kikuyu community to President Dr. William Ruto's second term chances?
The Kikuyu community is a very tricky question, but let me tell you this. The Kikuyu community is as important as the Okiek community in this country to the election of His Excellency the President.
Pretty much.
Because as I told you,
yes,
the election of 2027 will be based on the scorecard of the government.
Pretty much.
Did he deliver on the promises of the manifesto?
Yes.
That's what we're going to define.
Pretty much.
Yes.
But just purely based on the voting blocks in this country, because regardless of what you say, we do know, Shiyuka. I mean, the Kisii community is as important as the Kikuyu community, is important as the Kalenjin community, is as important as the Kamba community to the running in the 2027 election, because at the end of the day, it goes back to numbers. And that's exactly what it is we're looking at. So how important is this Kikuyu community that Rigathi Gachagua is deeply invested in for the running of
let me tell you,
election?
The Kikuyu community is very important in this country to any serious political presidential aspirant.
Does that?
You get me?
So do you feel?
But the Kikuyu community is not naive to support somebody just because he's a Kikuyu. You get me?
Let me leave you there, because that particular point, I'll be telling you exactly what majority of Kikuyu leaders have also been speaking on this particular one. But look, as you respond to what he said, I'm also going to tie this to what's also happening in President Ruto's camp. One man is also turning out to be a bit unpopular. That is Raila Odinga. And this is why. Let me just paint that picture. Just the other day, Raila Odinga comes out and says he's a man who's been known to fight heavily in the opposition. Since that marriage between him and Ruto happened, we've not seen his power. His influence, as majority of people will say, has dimmed. Just yesterday here, I had panelists on that particular desk that you are, and they failed to pinpoint what the voting bloc for the Nyanza community is going to be now that Raila Odinga has decided to go silent. In fact, they both gave a rejoinder that in some way, the majority of people in that voting bloc are waiting for Raila Odinga to make the right decision in quotes. That to them, they see that the right decision will be Raila Odinga walking out of this government. That would be the right decision for them. That they find themselves in an island where they're waiting to be rescued by one voice, because they've always voted in one voice. Then the same similarities were given to the Kikuyu community. That if you look at how they voted all the way to the last general election, they've always voted one voice. That you will know exactly where the ballot is heading. This time around, Raila Odinga, even him speaking last week, is even touting the idea of us voting dropping the voter register and voting just by our national IDs.
Yes.
We do know exactly where that is pegged towards, because there's another drive to register the northern part of the country and get them into the national voting system. Do you think that itself is what is creating this shift? That indeed, you can run away from it, but there are factors, number one, democratic factors in this government, the way they are dealing with those tough issues going around, dealing with the young people in this country in terms of how they are demonstrating, the cost of living in this country, appointments in government, and also that big factor that Raila Odinga has never been a blessing in a collusion. Is that where the shift is, that we can clearly say it? And probably, Bolo, let me start from this. Probably you will tell us, how do you think that the Luo community and the Nyanza community is going to vote, even if Raila Odinga lives by his promise? He said he's going to stick with one president, William Ruto, all the way through to 2027.
Before I answer that question, you asked Douglas, do you feel whether the ground has shifted?
That's it.
And I was anxiously waiting to hear a yes or no, and then he
really
goes ahead to support. But he took us, we were just going here to Naivasha. He took us to Morocco, to South Africa, to, Homa, and then we have come back and we have still not gone to the Naivasha we were going to. So has the ground shifted? Absolutely. But not in favor of Rigathi Gachagua. Has he been part of the people who have influenced the ground shifting? Absolutely. But he has influenced it, but it has not shifted to his favor.
Yes.
And why I say this is because the people that we should be looking at is not the Kikuyu vote, it's not the Kalenjin vote, it's not even the Luo vote. It's the vote of the young people. Because today, if you were to go to elections, young people will thoroughly vote William Samoei Ruto out.
Yes.
The political conversation shifted June 25th of last year. And that's why we see a lot of members of parliament are struggling to just go and speak in funerals in their own backyard as they would previously. Previously it was as simple as ensuring you have your money to go and give out contributions in the funerals, in the harambes, in whatnot, and you would be good to go. But right now, you will go and you will say something mediocre in parliament,
yes,
and you will go back, and your people will tell you you are not speaking. You need to go back to parliament and change your sentiments. They will actually tell them, you brought for us this president, you promised us that when we vote in this president, these are at least the two things that they will give us as a community. It has not happened. And a lot of people who are speaking are young people. We saw my governor, Gladys Wanga, go to speak at a conference that would have been deemed an international conference, had nothing to do with the democratic space per se, but more so on, I think it was climate adaptation. And yes, we saw a young person come out and actually speak in a forum that you would not expect and say, this is my governor, this is what I think she is doing wrong, and this is what she should have done right. So if today young people are told, go to the ballot, I can guarantee you they would not vote for William Samoei Ruto, but they would also not vote for Rigathi Gachagua.
Yes.
And I know that recently when the president's son launched his matatu, people were saying, oh, young people can easily be bought. They were in KICC, it was being renowned, they were celebrating a matatu by the president's son. Look, This generation is a generation that will eat your fare na atakuliza utadu. This is a generation that will come to your party, eat your food, and still correct you if you are wrong. So this is a generation that will come dance to your music, help you launch your matatu, go to your club. We see them go to Timber XO, they eat, they drink, and they shout and say, Ruto must go. And that is an establishment of an ally of the current president. And so if we are using the parameters of the tribal factor to determine the president, then I think we are losing it. And that is why I strongly believe there is a problem with voter registration, because the president knows that if today young people are all given the voter's card, he will be out. He will actually be a one-term president because young people are not happy. You tell them, I will give you digital jobs, and then you make the environment hostile. You tell them that they will be able to get money in their pocket. Hii ni uchumi ya hustler. So I am expecting, as a common citizen, not an elite, as a common citizen, I am expecting that come 2023, at the very least, when you have settled, I should be able to have money in my pocket. But now come 2023, you are telling me that in the space where, because I cannot afford to rent out a shop, I am going to sell my things online. You're now telling me you're coming after that space, you're coming after my taxes. You're now telling me, you're now unleashing, and if you go to Ngara Market, for example, yes, we have city councils that are always being unleashed at the people in Ngara Market, in Nyayo Market in Ngara. And so what is happening is that people are saying, this governor belongs to the ruling party. So huyu tulipatiwa na rais wetu. Why isn't he talking to the governor to streamline things? Yes. And so his allies, the president's allies, are also not helping him very much to solidify his case. So I don't think we should be looking at the tribal factor. But to answer your question, as a voter in Nyakongo polling station, which is in Homa Bay County, I will tell you for free that it is going to be a problem if Raila Odinga decides to stick by Ruto. But I have come to respect Raila as a wise political man. And I say this because politics, unfortunately, is about interest. And so Raila looks at where his interests are being served. And he knows that his interest will not be served should Ruto go a second term. Yes. Because should Ruto go a second term, why will he need Raila Odinga anymore? Why will he need him? So he knows, Raila knows that if Ruto goes a second term, he is going to be frustrated in that government. We have seen some of the punitive laws and punitive punishments that Ruto's government is actually pushing. And we have seen the president be quiet when these things are happening. So if you're quiet when something is happening, it means you're comfortable with it. And so I strongly believe that Raila will surprise people last minute. Every time an election comes, when we've always thought, an election has passed, we've always thought Raila is done, he comes back with one last bullet. And he carves out something that resonates with people. We have had Azimio la Umoja, we have had the CORD, we've had NASA, he comes up with a language that knows how to whip Kenyans emotionally, because Kenyans are very emotional voters, unfortunately. Yes. So he knows how to coin that discussion, and he knows how to push Kenyans towards a direction that will sanctify him and say, okay, you made a mistake, you're human just like the rest of us, so maybe we will give you just one more chance. But this time round, I strongly believe that he knows what is at stake, not just for his community, but for him as an individual, if Ruto goes for a second term. Because this is the very same man who, when you were on the streets, saw your businesses being targeted and was quiet. We saw that during the 2023 protests, when they were being led by Azimio, we saw what happened to the former president Uhuru's land. And so I know Raila is a wise man, and I know he knows what is at stake for him should he support William Samoei Ruto for a second term. So I think it's too early to make that call, to make that decision, but I know he is going to surprise us come 2027. I strongly believe so, but more so, I strongly hope so. I think hope is the word to use right now.
Is that the general feeling in that voter bloc?
Now, currently, the truth of the matter is when you go to some of the parts in Homa Bay, they say KBP, Kumi Bila Break. And they're saying this because they have seen some of their kingpins or some of the leaders they respect be given opportunities and platforms that they've never had. And it's more of the hope that is being instilled in a community that has deemed to be God's least favorite in their own country. When Mbadi held his briefcase and took a photo, I will tell you that even in my backyard, we have people who have framed that photo in their shops. And they are saying Wodonagi is the first one, you know, son of the lake, is the first one to read the budget in this manner. He is the first one to actually go out and speak in this manner. That does something to a community, and it is that hope. You know, politics is a art of selling your face, because that is being visible, and selling hope. And so that hope is what is being sold right now. But we have a faction that is coming out very strongly and saying, it is our time to eat and enjoy. We have had long years of our children being killed. We have had long years of begging to have certain roads. We have had years where we are asking people to look at the sugar factories, look at the cotton industry in our area. So these are conversations that they're having, but they're saying, so for now, let us enjoy it. But we know that come 2027, we are not going to vote for this man.
Yes.
And it also, I think one thing that really radicalized people from Luo Nyanza specifically is when there was a conversation of the president extending his term limit. And this came from one of his allies. The minute that conversation came in, a lot of people retreated and said, whoa, if this is the conversation he's having now and this is his first term, what will happen to us in his second term? This hope that he is selling to us will be completely closed down in his second term. And so again, I say it's a bit too early, because right now everybody is looking out for their interests. I mean, they're saying if I can be able to have someone who knows someone who is in treasury for the first time, I think I am okay with it for now.
Yes.
So for now we will sing Kumi Bila Break, because we need you to actually continue giving our children those opportunities. But come 2027, we know that things will change. And I will tell you, Simba, we will come back to this desk and we will replay this clip where I will tell you, come 2027, the tune will quickly change in a lot of areas from Kumi Bila Break to one term.
Why not from two term? Not why two term express.
The two term express is a dream.
So let me pose that question to you then.
And sorry, Simba, before I forget, there's something that Douglas said that I wanted to touch on. When he was talking about the scorecard, and he was saying that the Kikuyu bloc has had more than what the President Uhuru gave them. When you go, and I'll give two particular areas. When you go to Subukia, they will tell you, wakati wa Rais Uhuru, tulikuwa tunasikia, this is research that has been done, tulikuwa tunasikia avocado zetu zinaenda. Tulikuwa, sisi kama wakulima, tulikuwa tunasikia tuko na rais.
Yes.
If you go to certain areas, go to Molo, they will tell you, tulikuwa tunasikia, watu wa maziwa tulikuwa tunasikia ni kama tuko na rais. There was money in our pockets. We used to feel the economy as farmers of livestock. We used to feel it. So right now, they are saying we can't feel it. Yes, you are saying you have given us cabinet positions. While Rigathi was in government, there are some cabinet positions that you gave us, but we are not feeling it. So what use is it to give a few people power and money, and majority who are in this country cannot feel it, are struggling to take their children to school. Right now, healthcare is so expensive, even to people who people who would afford insurance, right now cannot even afford insurance. They are self-medicating with painkillers because they cannot afford to go to hospital. One medical bill is going to render them poor. And so right now I am yet to hear a community, and by a community, I mean an economical community.
Yes.
Let it be farmers, let it be engineers, let it be lawyers. Of course, lawyers are having a good time because every other day they have to go and remove an activist from Kahawa law courts or the likes. But I'm yet to see an economical community come out and say, anyway, we have been able to feel the presence of Rais William Ruto.
Yes.
We are yet to see that. In fact, many people are complaining because industries are shutting down. Investors are moving to other countries.
Let me tell you, I think
Shuka, even as you respond to that, I'll give you a chance to tackle that. So, in terms of the ground shifting, the young voter bloc that is seemingly protesting heavily in the country. I mean, if you look at the number of protests that President William Ruto has faced, you will say that he is a president who came in on the back of protests, and up to now, the protests in his government are still going on. His latest claim is that the protests in the country from the young people is just on the back of failed parenting. He's also ignoring that shift, that the young people in this country who form a very big number, that should they decide that we're going to vote as a bloc as well, then for the very first time, and there's the critics who say, well, there are also analysts who say, well, if the young voting bloc in this country is rallied to go register to vote, then we do know very well where they're going to vote, for or against. But they also say it is never going to be for one President William Ruto, going by how the protests in the country that have been spearheaded by the Gen Z. Are we also forgetting that is a president who's faced a lot of protests like we've never seen before in this country?
Mr. Simba,
yes.
I'll agree with you. First, it is a democratic right for the Gen Zs to protest.
Against what?
Because
against what, Shiuka?
No, you know, they are advancing what they feel should be done by the government.
Yes.
And that is right. But they are Kenyans.
They've been quite vocal.
And you see,
yes, they've been quite vocal.
And the first protest last year, that of the finance bill, protest, that was a very genuine protest. Very genuine protest.
But it later morphed.
Actually, but you see, now it is now morphing into something that is amorphous. You know, this is now something that is amorphous. You don't know the leaders. You don't know, even now, you don't know what they're pushing for.
But they're being quite clear. The voice,
and you see,
when you look at the voice,
the government allows that, if the government entertains an amorphous organization that has got no leadership to come and roam in the streets, terrorize business people. You know, she was saying rightly so, and I agree with her, that farmers in Subukia are complaining because of milk. They cannot do business in an environment that is not peaceful. There is no investor who is going to come from abroad, even you right now. There's no investor who is going to come and invest in a country that is almost a demonstration country. Every month there is demonstration. Which kind of investor will come and invest in this country? So they have to know that they are the biggest contributor of the economy to slide down. Because they are just away investors. The country cannot grow investment-wise when we have got protests every day. And the power will shift. Right? Let me tell you, for me, the power is yet to shift. The power will completely shift when the official campaign will start. 1. 2, when the opposition will now say, this is our flag bearer.
Yes.
This is the person we are putting forward to square it with His Excellency, the President, Dr. William Ruto. That's now when the power will shift. And that is now when the game is going to change, now they came to change. Because they'll no longer be saying that one term. One term is not going to be what will make them go and seat the president. They will have to come out with a manifesto that is superior to that of the Kenya Kwanza government. And the Kenya Kwanza government, we shall come with our scorecard. This is what we presented to you when we were seeking for your vote. After 5 years, this is what we have delivered.
Yes.
And you see, what Gachagua and the brigade are trying to do are trying to confuse the president, the attention, so that he is not focused on implementing his manifesto. So that when the time comes for the re-election, he has completely done nothing. But I think the president has done so well, he has ignored them. He's going on, he's focused on implementing his manifesto because he knows that is what Kenya will ask him. We gave you vote because you said A, B, C, D. What have you done? And that's why I said 2027 is going to be on the scorecard of the Kenya Kwanza government and what the opposition will bring on the table, not one-term songs.
Well, you're going to react to that as well. I also want you to look into this because we actually have 6 minutes to clear.
Okay.
Yes.
So just quickly on that. This perceived scramble for the Gen Z vote in a 2027, and everybody sees it, and it's a big number.
Yes.
Are they closing their eyes on that that this is a voting bloc that is already made up their mind. I mean, you can even want to answer me, but their protests since last year to this year have moved into, we want you out of office. In fact, the threats have been, we are coming to State House to take you out of that place. That is the latest protest that we had on the Sabasaba protests. So that shift, and we're seeing it. And if indeed we went out to vote today and heavily registered the Gen Zs, don't we know how they're going to vote, Bella?
We definitely know that they will vote him out. And they have said it time and time again. And I'll tell you, in 2022, it was such a task to get young people to vote. My younger brother, I could not convince him to go. I had to force him to go and vote with 6 of his friends.
Yes.
This year, he asked me, actually last year he asked me, na wewe Ruto ulivotia nani last year? And I told him. And he told me, oh, nilifikiria ulivotia Ruto. Na kina mama unafikiria ulivotia nani? Hebu tuende tuwaulize, if they voted for Ruto, tusikubali wa vote next year. And when I went online, I actually saw that it was actually a common joke where people were saying, you need to check on your older siblings and your parents and check who they voted for. That is a rallying call along. So this year, this election in 2027,
yes,
they will actually be number one, the first ones on the queue. And they will be saying, I mean, we're talking about a generation that goes to concerts 3 hours before. They will go to the queue and they will actually say, we need our siblings, we need our parents to come out and vote against a regime that is telling us to be shot in our leg.
Yes.
And then come and tell us that we are the cause. If you look at all the protests, Simba, every single one of them, even those that are being done by the goons, the protests start very well. But the minute police officers appear on the scene with young people or with men who are carrying, because I've not seen any woman, with men who are carrying sticks, the minute, because these people always arrive with the police officers, and that is the truth of the matter. The minute they arrive with them, those things turn chaotic.
Yes.
So then that leaves the question, is it the protesters that is bringing chaos, or is it the government that is represented by the police officers? So I think we need to have a very honest conversation when we say the protests are the reasons as to why this country is not stable, as to why we are having a reactive president and not an active president. We need to ask ourselves, the onus is on who for peaceable protests? Because protesters are not armed. It is the police officers who are armed. It is these people who they are bringing with sticks and machetes that are armed. So I mean, I've always wanted to ask the president, what would happen if we just let people march? If we just provided security and just let them march, what would happen? I know Douglas wants to say
the police are there to take care.
When they arrive with people who have machetes?
No, but those machetes people,
I actually want to hear you.
I was trying to ask you, how, at what point do we differentiate peaceful protesters and people who are in
and I have answered this question severally.
But how do we differentiate?
The minute you are coming to, you cannot come to a protest with a machete.
How do the police differentiate between the
by looking
protesters?
at the things that the protesters are carrying. A protester is carrying a placard. A goon is carrying a machete. How are they the same people?
You know the police, they have the mandate to protect even the protesters.
But if I am carrying a placard,
even the property. But when people come, they come to protest and they have bangers. How will the police differentiate between a person?
So people who are coming with bangers are coming with the police officers.
How will a police going to differentiate between a peaceful protester and the one having a banger?
And I have answered this.
What informs you to think that the one carrying a banger is not a protester? What informs
Douglas,
yes.
I have answered this severally.
Yes.
We have clips where people who are coming. Let me answer your question.
Yes, let her answer. What informs you? What is the difference?
I have been in the protest.
What is the difference?
And I have also seen the clips. Because people who have come to the protests with machetes are people who have walked in with police officers. I have personally seen them alight and be given instructions by police. That is what I have seen with my eyes.
I don't agree with you because
they are being told.
Let me tell you,
go to that corner. Go to that corner. They have sticks. They have machetes.
Even where policemen are not.
So be it may on exactly.
We have seen where property has been destroyed completely.
Yes,
people have been beaten by protesters without police being there. What we are saying is. The protesters have got a constitutional right by law to protest.
Yes.
But also, once I'm exercising my right, I should not infringe on your rights.
That's it. But here's the thing, though.
That's where
I expected Douglas to tell us, Simba.
Here's the thing. We actually have a minute.
Yes.
I want to pose this question. I'm going to give you 30 seconds each to respond to it, so we know exactly what shift that we're talking about. Here's the thing. Rigathi Gachagua is invested in the central part of the country, and in the last election, this part of the country contributed 3.1 million votes to the total tally that was in the general election. If you look at the Nyanza region and the rest of them, the 6 coastal counties, they have a total of 1.96 million. So you can say it's almost twice that block. So let's talk about it then. This shift that everybody is asking about. If indeed President Dr. William Ruto doesn't have the 3.1 or doesn't have the absolute percentage of the 3.1 like he got in the last general election, and doesn't have the Gen Z voter bloc that is now perceived to be a new entry into the 2027 general elections, are we looking at a man who's going to struggle to attain the 50+1? Bolo, 30 seconds.
We are actually looking at a man who is going to struggle, and if you want an indicator, I will give you just 3 things. The first indicator is that he's ensuring that no one is speaking against him. That's a man who is already worried, and he knows what the numbers look like for him. 2, look at his allies, Douglas being the first one here. He's unable to give very straight up answers. One of the things I expected Douglas to tell us is the president promised he would he would appoint the judges. He did.
Yes.
The president promised that he would attain gender in the cabinet. In cabinet, he has not been able to do it. So that's what I expected to hear in Douglas's responses. But take note, throughout this interview, and I invite the listeners to listen in and look back at the clips, has he given us any of that? That should allow you to answer whether or not his people are worried.
That's it. Shuka, same as well. I'm just going to give you numbers. Let me just go to what will be then the strongholds of one President Dr. William Ruto. If you look at the Rift Valley region, it's home to 14 counties, which essentially remain with the highest total number of voters. Last election, it clocked in at 5.34 million registered voters. If you go to the northern part of the country, it's got the least number of voters in this country. If you look at Mount Kenya region, including Laikipia and Nakuru counties from the Rift Valley, bringing about 5.7 million registered voters. In August of 2017, when they decided to come out largely and vote, these 2 regions, the Rift Valley region and the Mount Kenya region, they recorded a total of 93% vote count for one Uhuru Kenyatta and one Deputy President William Ruto. Do you think he's going to score the same numbers like they scored in 2017? If indeed you're saying that shift, you don't see it, you don't feel it. 30 seconds, Shiyuka.
Let me tell you, my brother, yes, Kenyans are very wise. And for that matter, the Kikuyu community.
Yes.
You remember in 2017, it was Raila, it was 2022, it was Raila and President Uhuru Kenyatta. President Uhuru Kenyatta was leading to in mobilizing the Kikuyu community to vote for Raila. But they could not listen to him. Not just because he was the president and him being a Kikuyu, he was telling them, let's vote for Raila. They did not listen to him. Let's listen, they did not listen to him. These are the people who are very smart. Unless Rigathi Gachagua brings issue-based politics on the table, Kikuyu community will not support him. I can tell you. And politics is very, very dynamic. As long as the president is his campaign and the government is issue-based, we shall get 2-term pillar break.
Guess what? There's just so much that we're going to talk about this. I would like to invite you back again, because we do know very well that Rigathi Gachagua has vowed to go out and keep on hitting the president where it hurts the most. And he's convinced that if he can take that 3.1 million votes away from that voter count come 2027, then he shall have achieved his main aim, which is saying is to take him out of office in whatever way he will do it. Bolo, Shiuka, thank you very much for joining me this morning. All right, take them back online and Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. Guess what? We end it here. I'll meet you tomorrow again, where we get to look at other areas that are ticking in this country. Goodbye and good morning.